Hi everybody, my name is Dennis and welcome back to another album review. Today we're reviewing the fifth full-length album from American multi-genre duo 21 Pilots, entitled Trench. Now I've enjoyed a lot of 21 Pilots work in the past. Even though Blurry Face was a bit of a mixed bag, I still thought it was overall a pretty solid project, and a lot of their work before that's real enjoyable as well. And so I was looking forward to this project. A lot of the singles were really enjoyable, and it seemed like it had a lot of promise to it. So, how did it stack up? Well, first of all, I really felt like there were no bad tracks on this entire album. There were a couple more forgettable ones, but really every track was enjoyable in its own way. But there were two that especially stood out to me, and these two were Levitate and Neon Gravestones. These two tracks went above and beyond so much. They were beautiful, they were amazing, in such incredible yet such different ways. Beginning with Levitate, it just has such an amazing beat to it. It's something that is easy to move to while still being different, unique, still having its own rights to be an amazing track, and it has some pretty solid lyrics on it as well. A lot of it dealing with how a lot of people seem to be almost fake friends to an extent, where they only come to help you to make themselves feel better, where cowards only come when the hour's late and everyone's asleep. When no one's looking and they're just trying to benefit their own self instead of actually helping you. And then we have Neon Gravestones, which has a really profound message on it. It was some of, if not the best writing on this entire album, where a lot of it deals with avoiding the glorification of suicide. And it's a very serious song, but it makes such a powerful statement where it uses a really great metaphor of neon gravestones, because neon is something that's bright, it's flashy, it's something we draw our attention to, and a gravestone obviously meaning death. And it does a really great job of making a strong point and backing it up while still being an enjoyable song overall. Where a lot of it he talks about how when someone dies, especially when it's to suicide, people tend to glorify them. They tend to put them on a pedestal to an extent where it's really unhealthy and it sends a really bad message. Because if you make suicide out to be this positive thing almost, to where if someone kills themselves that everyone starts to pay attention and everyone finally starts to care, how do you think that affects people who actually have suicidal thoughts? It's a really bad message that is more than prevalent today, and it's something that a lot of people are too scared to clarify because they don't want to seem disrespectful, which is completely understandable. That's why a lot of times I have a hard time talking about artists after they've died, even if they're featured on another album. Take my last review, on my Lil Wayne review. There was a song featuring XXXTentacion, and I chose not to bring up that song because I didn't want to step on any toes either way. And I mean, past that though, this is a really amazing song. It's extremely well written, and it has a really well done conclusion. It doesn't just say, don't do this. It says what we should do instead. Where it talks about find someone who's lived a long, fulfilling life. Find one of your grandparents or anyone who is of an older age. Find out what they've gone through, what they've done, and celebrate their life. Celebrate what they've done while they're alive. And don't wait until after someone's gone to think about how much they mean. It's a really powerful message, and it's one that not enough people are saying. So these two songs were phenomenal in every way. Like Levitate is so amazing because of the incredible beat, the incredible production, above and beyond. It had some of the best production on the album, and it's just so much fun to listen to. And then we have Neon Gravestones, like I said, has such a profound message that it's hard not to love it. Moving on from there, though, we still had some other really great tracks on this, and some of them sported a really dark, interesting beat that's new to 21 Pilots on this album. Songs like Jumpsuit or Pet Cheetah had some really heavy, dark, aggressive beats. And in the case of Pet Cheetah, it was even really experimental. And 21 Pilots have never been exactly the most experimental of bands, so it was nice to see them trying something different, trying something that no one's ever done before. And these are both really enjoyable tracks, and they offer some really great instrumentals. And a lot of this album goes over although it's a fairly complex story, it does follow a general narrative. A lot of this, and I'm going to apologize for when I inevitably mess this up, but from my understanding, we have Tyler Joseph, the lead singer. He is trapped in this fictional location known as Dima. And Dima represents all of the dark, negative, suicidal thoughts that one may have, all of the negative emotions that ones may normally repress. Him being trapped in this prison. And like I said, this place is known as Dima. So he's trapped in this prison, and he's being held there by bishops. And there are 9 bishops, and these 9 bishops are all emotions. They're the dark emotions that keep you in this really poor state of mind. And these emotions are being led by the dark side of one's mind, which, as we knew from the previous album, was Blurry Face, which I now have come to the understanding that his name is Nico. So Nico is the dark side of Tyler that leads all the negative emotions that keeps his mind in this dark place. But in this prison with him, there are banditos. And banditos are other people who have gone through similar situations, who are there to support you and help you through these things. The banditos are regularly trying to help Tyler escape from Dima. And then there's his jumpsuit. And his jumpsuit is something that brings him a lot of comfort. And I've heard things that it's yellow and the bishops can't see that, but in my opinion that seems fairly irrelevant. I try to pay attention to what it represents and what it means. And I think that's really what we should focus on, and not all the minute details of every single word he says. But I digress. The jumpsuit is something that brings him comfort that, as we see in some of these songs, literally helps him to float away, to float higher into a better place. You know, where we think sometimes, like, if our mood is high, it means it's good. So this is literally bringing him higher. So, I think I covered everything as far as the terminology goes. So, with that being said, the opening track of Jumpsuit introduces us to this place of Dima, and he's relying on his jumpsuit, this thing that he holds dear to him, to help him overcome this darkness. And through Levitate, we see this jumpsuit levitating him to higher degrees. Then we have on the song Nico and the Niners. This is where we're first introduced to Nico on this album. Nico is first introduced in an earlier track, but this is where we see the most of Nico, and we learn of the 9 bishops that he holds. And I was honestly a bit disappointed with Nico and the Niners, because I felt like it could have done more to explain a lot of the lore of this album. And it still wasn't a bad track. None of the tracks on this album were bad, but it was definitely, I felt like, somewhat of a missed opportunity. It wasn't all that amazing with its sounds either. The production was decent, but nothing to phone home about. In a lot of ways, I felt the same about the song Cut My Lip. It has a decent meaning to it, with him saying that he cut his lip on a rusty cup, which I've come to the understanding of this rusty cup being, it's holding water, and water is something we all need. So he's trying to get to the water, and even though he sees it's in a rusty cup, or the thing he's trying to attain is behind something dangerous, he decides to go for it anyways, and he cuts his lip or hurts himself, as we would say, like, for what actually happens. Even though this has a nice meaning, again, I think it was a bit of a letdown as far as the production goes. Still a solid track, but, it was a bit more forgettable. Then there was also Smithereens. And Smithereens actually has a really nice tune. I like the production, I like the instrumentals, it's simple and sweet. But a lot of its a lot of its simplicity is what makes it not all that amazing. It's a pretty straightforward track about Tyler Joseph's wife, and it's just him saying, like, he even says on the song, like, I had to do this for you. Like, they think, like, they don't like it when I sell out for my girl, things like that. And I mean, it's sweet, it has a nice sentiment, but overall it's pretty generic in its writing. It's pretty corny, it's cheesy, and it's still enjoyable. It has a nice tune to it, it's easy to move along with, but it's pretty bland in its writing, I felt. But I mean, still, even though I'm saying some negative things, like, all of these tracks are good in their own right. I mean, we have some truly amazing tracks other than the ones I already brought out. I mean, Legend is an amazing ode to his grandfather, and what I find really amazing is when he was first writing it, it was while his grandfather was still alive, and his grandfather saw this song, was looking over the lyrics and things. But before the album came out, his grandfather passed away, unfortunately, and he includes a line at the end acknowledging this, but he keeps the whole song very upbeat. It's very up-tempo. It's a really sweet tribute that is just a really enjoyable listen, both on itself and with the rest of the album. I mean, Chlorine, My Blood, Morph, these all have really enjoyable beats. Especially Morph and My Blood. Those two have some really, really groovy sounds to them that really complement his vocal delivery as well. With Chlorine taking a more soft, dark approach, it still is a really enjoyable track. And overall, the album is really cohesive, with a beautiful blend of light, airy songs like The Hype, or as I previously mentioned, Morph and My Blood, with a lot of the dark and heavier hitting songs like Levitate and Pet Cheetah. And it all ties up into a nice bow with Leave the City, where it seems like, even though there isn't a true conclusion to the album, which this is a continuation of Blurry Face, it still offers a nice ending. It doesn't wrap everything up. It doesn't tie every single loose end of the story, but it does enough to where I felt like it was a satisfying conclusion. You know, does he actually ever escape Dima? Does he overcome these feelings? We don't know, but we do know he's always trying, and it's a constant battle because these bishops are pulling him back in every time he tries to escape. So, overall, this was an amazing album. I think it's 21 Pilots' best work to date. Every single song is enjoyable, with plenty of the tracks being really amazing. And it's definitely something that you should check out. Even if you're not a fan of 21 Pilots, even if you didn't like Blurry Face, this is 21 Pilots' best album to date. And with that, I am feeling an 8 out of 10. Tell me what you thought about the album, and tell me how wrong my opinion is as always, and I'll see you in the next review.